I'm going to make some comments today about some of the things that really bother me about ham radio. One of the things that don't bother me is QRZ. I want you to also know I'm wearing my yellow vest because hams always need to be wearing their yellow vest. But QRZ is a website and a forum and a place where you can find calls. And I love to get in there and discuss things with many of the hams that are on there. Most of them are pretty intelligent, very intelligent group. However, they don't like some of my comments, and I've been banned there a few times, so I try and be very careful. But it's run by a guy by the name of Fred. I think his call is AA7BZ, Bravo Zulu, and they run a pretty good site and pretty well moderated by most of those that are there. But I have my little QRZ patch that I got, and also I want you to know, if I can get my call up here, it's K1OIK. Okay, I have a little cue card here that I use so that I can remember some of the things that do bother me. One of those things that bother me are people that say, when you go online, they will say, "Thanks for the ad." Well, what they mean on Facebook, there's a group and they like people, they're thanking the host for adding them in. Well, everybody gets added in. So when someone goes up there and posts "thanks for the ad," what they're really saying is, "Hey, look at me, I'm here. So thanks for putting me in." So I really appreciate that. Another thing about hams, they say they invest in equipment. I'm going to give you a clue. They don't invest in equipment, they buy equipment. I invest in stocks. I bought Apple stock at $60. It's now worth a little over $200, although that can change any day. I bought a ham rig for about $3,000, and it's not worth any more than that. In fact, it's probably worth about I shouldn't say 50, about $2,500. Another thing hams like to do is they buy rigs for backup. What are they backing up? I don't get it. How important is ham radio? Now, I have a microwave oven in the other room, and I like to I ought to back that up because that's really kind of critical. My car has a spare tire, and that's pretty important to have a critical. And we actually have 2 bathrooms, and that's kind of important in case one of them backs up. So you really have to have something to back, this backing up things, ham radio, I really don't get that. I see some posting sometimes when I get a postcard, a QSL card, a ham will say, they will write on the postcard ARS. Does anyone think the post office knows what ARS stands for? So they will say ARS K1OIK. ARS stands for amateur radio station, but no one in the post office is going to know what ARS stands for. Another comment that hams will post online, they'll say "for grins." I'm not exactly sure what that means. Someone needs to explain that to me. I want you to notice this is a Heathkit VF1 VFO. I go on eBay sometimes, and QRZ, they have a great swap shop on QRZ, absolutely great swap shop. And this is a Heathkit VF1 VFO, and that's what we used to use to be able to change frequencies back 50 years ago. Sometimes you'll see a ham when they post something on a swap shop, there's no way to know if it works. You have a receiver, plug it in, put a wire to it, and see if it works. Stick a speaker on it. They no way know if it works. Now I can understand that if you've got a transmitter and maybe you don't have an antenna, but when you post on there, and in most of these sales that are posted, by the way, are people they have bought something by estate, and from an estate. But when they say no way to know if it works, turn it on. Actually, what they mean when they say no way to know if it works, it does work. They tested it out, and it doesn't work. but they want to post it on there that say there's no way to know if it works. Um, uh, Finally, when hams are thinking of buying something, they say they're going to bite the bullet. Like that's some great big deal, buying a piece of ham equipment. I think I'll bite the bullet and invest, remember that word, and invest in a ICOM 7610. Well, remember what I mentioned about invest. One of the things that probably bother me the most is on Morse code, CW, at the end of a transmission, a ham will say KN. They will send da 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 da. K means an invitation to transmit. When you add the N, it means no breakers. Well, most hams that send KN don't know what the N means. And if they did know what the N means, if it's a domestic contact, no one's going to break into your contact. No one is all that anxious to talk to a K9 or a W4 that they're going to break into the contact. I've been on the air for 56 years. No one has ever broken into any of the contacts on Morse code that I have. Now I know I'm not that popular, but I don't think anyone breaks into contacts. Now it may be, in an unusual case, you may have someone break into a contact. If it's a long distance station, what's known as the DX station. I was talking to a guy in Greece at one point, and when I was talking to him, people kept trying to break in to talk to him. The guy finally said, "Don't break in or I'll never talk to you again." And many times I'll see posted on a message the word personally. Why does someone put the word personally on there? I'm kind of curious. Isn't every message that you post a personal message? Another thing hams like to do is they'll say for ID. So they might give their call WA2XXX for ID. Well, if you're giving a call, isn't it logically for ID? And then they love to use excess words. I'll give you an example. The name here, not my, because I don't want to be personal. The name here is Fred. So does their name change when they go somewhere else? I'm kind of wondering if their name does change when they go somewhere else. Or the temperature here is 13 degrees. Well, does the temperature change when they go somewhere else? Or the temperature here is 60 degrees F. Well, the F stands for Fahrenheit. What's the purpose of the F? If it's 60 degrees, I can guarantee you it's not 60 degrees centigrade. Because nowhere on Earth, pretty much, unless you're in Death Valley, and I'm not so sure about that, is the temperature going to be 60 degrees C. So, sometimes when there's a DX station on, a station that's kind of rare, not very common, a lot of people like to talk to them. Occasionally a US station will make a speech when he's talking to him, telling him all his rig, what he's using, the weather. Well, the courtesy thing to do, if there are a lot of stations trying to talk to somebody, talk to this one station, is don't make a speech. The world is not all about you. Here's another one that hams love to do. They use the term we when they actually mean I, because they have so little self-worth or self-confidence. They use the term we. Once was talking to a guy, and he said, "We are taking my wife out for our anniversary dinner." And I said to him, "That's a little strange. Three of you out?" I don't want to go into any more detail than that because some of my students are in the 4th grade maybe watching this, but using the term we, generally not a good idea. People like to brag. I certainly like to brag because I teach 4th grade and I love to brag how much I love the kids, and the kids kind of like me. But you will see a ham go on the air and he will post and he will start bragging about how good his equipment is because he worked this station in Upper Mongolia. Well, actually what he's bragging about is himself, that he worked the station in Upper Mongolia. I wanted to show you, this is the first type of receiver that I owned when I was a kid. I got licensed when I was 14. My daughter got licensed when she was 8. Sometimes I see hams bragging that they got their license. I had one guy who was bragging that he'd just gotten his technician license. I said, well, you've risen to the level of an 8-year-old. And he said, well, what do you mean, an 8-year-old? I said, well, my daughter got a license when she was 8. And he said, well, she must have been smart. And I said, well, she was smart, but she was 8. So getting a technician license when every question and every answer is published is no big deal, because you just can memorize the questions. All the answers are given, so it's no big deal. But this is a great receiver. Look at the size of that S meter. That thing is huge. So I love this thing. Sometimes hams will go on, and when they post something, they tell me how much they paid. So they might be posting that they are selling a ICOM 7610, which is a fairly recent rig, and they'll say, well, I paid $3,300. Who cares what you paid? How dumb you are that you paid so much money for it. What you paid has nothing to do with what it's worth now. I bought a computer, an IBM computer, AT computer, for about $900. You think I can sell it for $900 now? So what I paid for it has a really no connection to it. Hams will say, to tell you actually it's not just restricted to hams, to tell you the truth, or let me be honest with you. Does that mean that they're lying all the rest of the time? And when they say to tell the truth, to tell you the truth, or let me be honest with you, are they lying the rest of the time? They use the term Q's. Now, hams do like abbreviation, but abbreviating an abbreviation, now Q's actually stands for QSO, or Q, pronounced QSO, which stands for contact. So abbreviating an abbreviation. They're trying to show basically how cool they are by doing that. Then there are the hams that call CQDX, and this is fairly common, CQDX. That means they're looking for stations that are far away. Well, would you go into a party and say, I only want to talk to people who are not U.S. citizens or not in America? It kind of sounds like it's discriminatory to call CQDX. I don't get a lot of support on that one, though. I'll tell you that. And I have hams when I'm talking to them on Morse code, CW, they'll say 72. And I'll say, well, what do you mean by 72? 72 and I owe you one, which 73 means best regards. That is really weak, really weak. Of course, then there's the ham that says hi, hi. Now, hi, hi is Morse code for laughter. In real life, when you're speaking in English on voice, you don't need to say hi, hi. If something is funny, guess what? You can laugh. I see hams that are collectors. They have all kinds of equipment, tons and tons of equipment, and they don't use it, but they collect it. Now that's fine, I get that. But when you're getting in your 70s and you're particularly in your 80s, well, you're gonna croak. I mean, I may not have long for this world. I'm gonna croak, and you're leaving your heirs with all that equipment to try and dispose of, which is not an easy thing to do, to dispose of the ham equipment. So some ham you may have $100,000 worth of these antiques, and someone's going to take it and put it in a dumpster, and instead of your heirs being able to gain from it. I heard a guy saying, when he was running his power, he was saying he's running 300 whiskeys. I said, 300 whiskeys? It means he has 300 bottles of whiskey? He's another really too cool ham, trying to be really cool. 300 whiskeys. I figured I'd show you a more modern transceiver rig. This is a Flex 6300, the display of a Flex 6300, 6400M, my mistake, a Flex 6400M. and you can supposedly use that rig and remotely. So for example, I did go to New Hampshire and was able to operate my rig from home from New Hampshire. I thought that was kind of cool. However, there used to be this woman on Saturday Night Live called Rosanna Dana. And Rosanna Dana used to do this bit where she would say, it's always something. And with Flex, it's basically always something. There's always something that's not going to work. Whether it resets when it's not supposed to, whether it doesn't work remotely, and whether you get all kinds of strange things happening on it. I've had it just not work. You turn it on and it freezes. But the company actually has some very good customer service, actually superior customer service, the best you could possibly imagine. Certainly wish Comcast had something like that. But they will help you. But these are great. You can go over, you can look at the one I have is the most inexpensive model, and it can look at 7 megahertz at one time, or as much as 14 megahertz. That's a lot. It is really amazing how these rigs work. All right, let's get back to complaints. There's a guy, Gordon West. He's called Gordo, and he sells a lot of these books to help hams become, or help people become hams. But the guy is totally in love, absolutely in love with himself. I went to the 100th ARL convention in Hartford, Connecticut, and I saw him do a presentation where he talked about himself, and then he asked what people wanted to know, if they wanted to know more about him. And I ran into him on the floor where they were selling things in another ham convention, and he knew I was doing videos, and he came up to me and he said, "Would you like to do an interview with me?" I said no. Had no interest in doing that. I wanted to talk to someone that was not in love with himself. But that's Gordo. Another thing I was wondering about, whenever you see, they have the ham radio magazine called QST, and the ARL always refers to itself as ARL. ARL said this, and ARL said this, said that. But any other organization, for example, if you're talking about the Yankees or the Red Sox, the word "the" is always in there. The FCC. What's the deal? What is the deal with the "the"? I don't get that. Many hams like to post videos without narrating them. They just are blessing you with their presentation. They don't narrate them. So you'll see me say, I do a sarcastic thing. That was a great narration. You really did a great job with that. And some of them kind of get a little bit mad. I see a lot of ads when hams will say no part. They don't want to sell to a part swapper. I've never heard of anybody swapping parts, but I guess maybe it does happen. But people get into seeing things online and then they just copy them, like this KN thing. Another thing you will see, you won't see it so much by hams on eBay, but you'll see it by people who are selling ham equipment. They will say rare. Not everything is rare. There are a lot of things that aren't rare. So if someone is selling a DX40, a Heathkit DX40, it's not rare. There are a lot of them around. So be careful when someone on eBay says they can't test it. It means it's not working. There are many things that they mean that are not working. Oh, and the final thing is, there's a guy by the name of Bob Heil. He sells these mics, Heil mics, really expensive mics, and they look great. By the way, they do look great. But I don't understand why hams would buy them, because hams that buy Heil mics, for those of you that are not into ham radio, the frequency response on ham radio is basically from 300 to 3000 hertz, or cycles per second. Any mic will do that. You don't have to buy a Heil mic. I have a $3 webcam mic that I've gotten better reports on than one of his mics. So I don't know why Ham would buy a Heil mic, except, with one exception, if you're using amplitude modulation or AM. If you're using AM, and that happens a lot on 80 meters and 160 meters, then I get it. Then it may make a difference. Or if you're a woman, sometimes, because a woman's voice has a lot more highs in it. So that's kind of my take on some of the things that ham radio operators do. You're certainly welcome to make comments on it. There are a number of hams who they will. One thing I did notice in ham radio, and I didn't mention it earlier. I get many different kinds of threats of hams, but I once went to a ham fest where a group of hams were going, and some hams had told me if I show up at that ham fest, they're going to beat the heck out of me. And so it was a sunny day, and I wore a yellow raincoat so that they could find me easily. They didn't do it. Hams have a habit of saying a lot of things to you online that they would never say to you in person. In fact, most of them wouldn't even say it to you on the air. I've challenged many of them to a phone call. Guess how many phone calls I got? I got one. And the call happened to be K1OIK, and he was pretty nice. He was pretty nice and very helpful in giving me some ideas on how to be a little bit more diplomatic, which I have not tried to be in this video, because the video is not being posted per se on a discussion forum, and I don't think if I did post it on the discussion forum I would last very long. So I hope you found something in this video you agreed with. Actually, I'm kind of curious if you found anything on this video you disagreed with.
CQ contest, CQ contest, CQ contest, 5959, CQ contest, CQ contest, 5959, CQ contest, CQ contest.